on how to vote in 2020. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at a couple of different options for ways to vote. I'll be showing this presentation throughout. And if you have any questions, all you need to do is just ask, and hopefully I should be able to answer those questions for you. So what we're going to do tonight is try to achieve a couple of things. Understand that there are 3 ways to vote in Pennsylvania this year. Make a plan for how to vote, how to cast your ballot this year, and be ready to take the first step to cast your ballot this year. So kind of a multifolded approach here of what we're going to be looking at doing. So what's your plan to vote in 2020? Obviously, we've gone through a lot of changes in the last year. The Act 77 of 2019 and Act 12 of 2020 made some significant changes to voting here in Pennsylvania. Both of these bills were passed by a bipartisan group in Harrisburg. And what these 2 bills allow for is the opportunity for more time to register to vote. Used to be that you could only register to a certain point, and they've extended that now. Anyone can vote by mail now. It used to be you could only vote by absentee, and you had to have a specific reason for doing that. Instead, this year, we are going to be able to vote by mail, as many of you maybe did in the primary, and you don't need a reason to vote by mail. You can just simply request a ballot. And there's no more straight party voting. So when you go into the ballot and you get that first screen, typically on your machines or on your ballot, that indicate voting straight party, that option is no longer available. And as we talk about this, we recognize the fact that there has been a lot of changes in what happened with voting as a result of these acts being passed. But also when you couple that with COVID-19, voting this year is completely different. We had a little bit of a trial run of that in June, and certainly we are hoping to expand some of those options as we go longer into closer to November as well. So as I mentioned, there are 3 options for you to vote. And the first one is probably the one that most people don't recognize, and that is voting early in person. And we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that in just a minute. The second is voting by mail. And the third is voting in person, obviously on November 3rd. So before you vote, before you follow through with any of those 3 methods, and before October 19th, which is your last day to register, everyone should confirm 1, that you're still on the voter list, and 2, where you're registered at. You can do that by going to votespa.com/status. You type in your information, and it will allow you to find out if you are registered and if you are still on the list. If you are not an active voter, this is the first time you've voted in a number of years, then your name may come off the list. And if you've moved recently, or your name has changed, or you want to change your party affiliation, any of that type of thing, you want to definitely check and make sure that all of that has been processed accordingly. So we definitely encourage folks to check that out and find that out early. And as we said, do that long before that October 19th deadline, so that you're not rushed to get registered. And if you are not registered, or you're not on the voter list still, while you're at votespa.com, you can go in and register to vote there. Your other option is you can call the County Board of Elections, and if you go to votespa.com/county, all of the respective county information is listed there for Pennsylvania. So as I said, there's 3 options. The first is to vote early in person. And this is an option that a lot of people probably don't even realize exists. And we are thrilled to be able to talk about this tonight, because it is an option that will bypass some of the concern related to mail-in ballots. Before, um, uh, actually beginning, I should say, beginning on September 14th, which is a Monday, which is actually next Monday, you can request, receive, vote, and return your mail-in ballot all in one trip to your county board of elections. Yes, you heard me right. You can actually go to your county board of elections. You can request the ballot there. They can print it out and hand it to you there. You can vote, and then you can return that mail-in ballot all at the same time. And then, of course, this option goes until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 27th. So you have a little bit more than a month to be able to do that. So for folks that were concerned about the mail and whether or not they would get there in time, you have a window of opportunity to do this. Something to consider, though, obviously, if you're planning to vote early, is find out where your county board of elections office is. And we already mentioned you can do that at votespa.com/county. And in York County, which is where I'm at right now, and I have a feeling that many of our viewers are there as well. You can go to the county administrative building on Market Street. And that is where on East Market Street, and that is where you will find the Board of Elections in the lower level of that building. And then you can also go to any satellite election offices your county might establish. Right now, some counties have that established, some do not. In York County, there's been no decision as to whether or not there would be a satellite election office available. If there would be, the County Board of Elections would be the one to make that decision. So you can always call and ask them if they plan to have a satellite elections office somewhere else other than that location on Market Street in York. So the County Board of Elections are required to provide you a mail-in ballot over the counter while you wait. And as we said, once you get that ballot, you can take it to a private space within that office or near that office. You can fill that out, mark the ballot as you would if it was mailed to you at home. You complete that ballot and you put it into the security envelope, seal that, and put that inside the outside envelope, seal that, and put your signature on it. And then you can walk that ballot back in and hand it to the Board of Elections at that time. So that will allow you that opportunity to actually really, in a sense, vote early by voting in person at the Board of Elections office. So we do encourage that if you have any concerns about mailing or any concerns about the mail-in ballots in general, this is a way to potentially avoid those lines at the voting booth and be able to follow through and vote before the election. Before you go, a couple things to keep in mind. First, call your County Board of Elections office to make sure that the ballots are final and ready to be printed for you. So, for example, here in York County, our understanding is that ballots will be ready and mailed by the beginning of October. They can start printing them September 14th and start mailing them out. And some counties may do that. Other counties may be waiting a few more weeks, and York County is certainly one of those that is doing that. So we encourage you to call your Board of Elections ahead of time to make sure that this is something that that they have available and that they have them ready to go. We don't want you running in there and finding out that they're not available. Second thing, know your hours that the county elections office will be open. Most are probably standard business hours, 8 to 5, but it's always good to check first and make sure that that's the case, because again, you don't want to show up there and not be able to get the information that you need. The last thing that we say is, look up the phone number for your County Board of Elections office, and that's just find that at votespa.com/county. We've mentioned that address now a couple times, and that's where you can get all the information that you need to know in one or two there as well. If you've already applied to vote by mail and you decide that this sounds like the way that you want to go, instead of waiting for your ballot to be mailed to you, you can go to the county elections office to request a mail-in ballot in person to vote early on the spot. So even if they haven't mailed it out yet, you can go in and ask for that. Before you go, see if your county has already mailed it out by checking the status of your mail-in ballot request. And we'll talk about how you do that in just a minute as well. But it's important to always stay on top of that and make sure that you check with your Board of Elections. Obviously, again, if they've already mailed it and you go to the Board of Elections without checking, they're they're not going to let you vote at that point in time because your ballot's already on the way. So definitely check early to see when they're mailing those ballots and see if you can get to the office before it gets mailed. Or obviously, as we mentioned, if you haven't applied for the mail-in ballot yet, you can just go in and register that day. So how do you track your ballot? The Pennsylvania Democratic Party is allowing folks to follow this link, padems.com/ballot finder, and that will take you right to the website where you can input your information and find out if indeed the ballot has been mailed, if it's being processed, what have you. And you'll get screens that look like this when you check that out. So if you're not signed up, you're going to get a screen where you've input your information, your date of birth, and when you submitted it, it's going to tell you that they were unable to match your record and that you should contact your county elections office. If you've signed up, you'll see the option at the bottom, which will indicate that it's a mail-in ballot. It's for whatever election. So obviously this will be the 2020 general election. It'll have when your application was received, and the status should indicate whether it's been mailed, whether it's pending, whatever the status may be. Again, at any time, if you have questions regarding this, you can always call your county board of elections and get that information. And they certainly will be able to provide this same information to you as well. If you've already applied to vote by mail, if the box below says ballot mailed on, then and it's filled out with a date, give it a week or two for the ballot to get to you before you go to your county elections office to request a new ballot. It may just be that there's a backlog and they're trying to get them out. That's what happened in the primary. If obviously we're getting close to the election and you haven't received it, but it says it's been mailed, we would definitely encourage you at that point to go to your Board of Elections and request one there. But again, we know that the mail is going to be bogged down, obviously, with the number of mail-in ballots that are being received and mailed back. So it may take a little bit of time for your ballot to both be mailed from the elections office and then to be received once you mail it back to them. So some important notes. If you are voting early in person at your county elections office, it is different than voting at your polling place. You vote on a mail-in ballot, not on a voting machine. So I think for most of us, we have the paper ballots here in York County, and I think most counties have moved that direction as well. But if you do still have the voting machines, you'll be filling out the paper ballot at the Board of Elections office. Don't forget to use the smaller secrecy envelopes. Same is true as when you mail it back when you get your ballot at home. You want to make sure it goes into that smaller envelope first. Then you want to make sure it goes into that outer envelope where the voter declaration is, and you want to make sure you sign that voter declaration. If you do not sign it, you run the risk of having your ballot tossed out. Some counties have indicated that they will follow through with counting them. Some have indicated they will toss them out. Rather than run that risk, make sure that you're signing that form on the outside. And be sure to follow, obviously, all of the COVID-19 guidance. Any protocol that the Board of Elections or your administrative offices have in place, make sure that you're following through with that. Wear your masks, make sure you're 6 feet apart. Just make sure in general that everything is being followed there. So if you decide to vote early in person, your first step after this training is to check with your county board of elections, beginning as early as September 14th, to see if the ballot is final and ready to be printed. That would be your first step. After you've obviously checked to see if you're registered first, it would be then to follow up with your board of elections office to see when those ballots are expected to be final and ready to be printed. And again, you can find that information at votespa.com/county. So how do you vote by mail? Again, some folks may be voted in person for the primary election. Some may be voted by mail. So for some, this may not be a new option that's available, but for others it may be. And we want to just walk through this, refresh folks' minds, refresh them as a reminder, just to get a sense of what it's going to be like to vote by mail. Mail-in voters are all registered voters, including absentee voters. And the only difference between a mail-in and an absentee voter is an absentee voter is a registered voter with a legally recognized excuse for voting by mail. And it's used to be the only way, it used to be the only way to vote by mail. But for example, if someone has a disability and is unable to go to the polling place, that can be documented on an absentee voter request, and the ballot will be sent to you as a result, and that will be the absentee ballot. Really, the mail-in ballot is, as I said, it's for everyone, and it includes those absentee voters as well. You do not need to have a reason. You can simply request the mail-in ballot, vote from home, throw it back in the mail, and send it off to your Board of Elections to be counted. It is very, very, very important to understand and share with others. There is no such thing as voting online. There's no such thing as voting by phone, and there's no such thing as voting by text in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. If someone receives a mailer or a phone call or a text saying otherwise, please advise them that is not accurate. You have 3 ways to vote: in person at the voting booth, by mail-in vote, by mail-in ballot, or by going to your Board of Elections and completing the mail-in ballot there. Those are your only options. Voting by mail really has 3 very simple steps in the process. The first, you request the ballot. The second, you complete the ballot. And the third, you deliver the ballot to the right place by the right time. Sounds very simple. There's a lot of areas that can get complicated in the middle. But one point of advice that we like to give right off the bat is, if you get your ballot early. So again, for example, we're in York County. York County ballots are probably going to go out the beginning of October. If you receive your ballot October 10th, don't wait until 4 days before the election to fill it out and mail it back. Fill it out, mail it back as soon as possible. That way you can ensure that your ballot will get to the Board of Elections on time and your vote will be counted for this year's election. So how do you request a mail-in ballot? Go to to padems.com/mail, and you can request that ballot online. And that's important. You can also go to the votespa.com site and vote and fill out your registration there, your request there. But ultimately, you're going to get to the same page if you go to this address as well, and that's the page that you see below here. If you check, they'll have a question about, are you a military or overseas civilian absentee voter? You'll want to check no, because otherwise you should be requesting an absentee ballot. Are you applying for a ballot because you will be absent from your municipality for the upcoming election? Vote no, because again, otherwise you should be filling out an absentee ballot. And are you applying for a ballot for the upcoming election because you cannot appear at the polling place due to an illness or a physical disability, again, vote no. Those are the only three options where if you vote yes, you should be getting an absentee ballot. Otherwise, if you vote no, you are registering to get a mail-in ballot. So I'm just looking here real quick. I wanted to see if we have any questions, and it doesn't look like it yet. So let's keep going on here. So that's option A for how you can request a ballot. Option B is you can request it by mail. You can go to votespa.com, you can print out the application, you can fill it out, and then you mail it back. And those applications are available in English or Spanish. Obviously, if you're at votespa.com, you are better off to register online. It's faster. The information gets processed the exact same way, and there's less likelihood that your request is going to get lost in the mail. So you want to make sure that you're getting counted and that you're getting your request, your ballot processed. So again, we encourage you to go to votespa.com and do the registration or the application for the mail-in ballot on that website. But if you prefer to do the paper method, you can print that out as well. You can also go to your Board of Elections and fill that out. And most of the Democratic headquarters around the specifically here in York County, but across the Commonwealth as well, will have those applications printed so that you're able to get that information at that, be able to fill out that application and send it back from there. So if you complete the mail-in ballot, you mail it to your Board of Elections office. You do not mail it to the state of Pennsylvania. You don't mail it to the Department of State, the Commonwealth, what have you. You mail it to your county Board of Elections office. So what happens if you want to fill out a paper ballot, a paper application, but you don't have a printer? All you need to do is send a signed letter to your county elections office with the same information that's on the application form, which you can find on that registration page. And you can get all that information on the votespa.com site. Again, to mail that to the Board of Elections, whether it's the letter or the actual printed mail-in ballot application, you can get that information at votespa.com/county. So for both options, remember, your request for a ballot, for a mail-in ballot, has to be received, the technical deadline for the request for the ballot. So the application for the ballot, not the ballot itself, but the application for the ballot has to be received by the deadline of 5 p.m. on October 27th. So you don't want to waste any time. Again, don't wait until the very last minute and say, hey, you know what, I think I do want to register and vote by mail, and wait till that very last minute. One, because it's going to take longer for the Board of Elections to get it processed, and it's going to be cutting it very close to the November 3rd election date. So you want to make sure that you get it filled out and completed as soon as possible. So try to get it done. You can begin to request that ballot at any time. So don't hesitate. Don't waste any time. So completing the ballot, step 2. Once you've requested the ballot comes to you in the mail. Now what do you do? Well, very simple. It's the same as if you go to the polling place and you're filling out a paper ballot. You fill in the circles with a dark pen, and you make sure you fill in those circles completely. You don't want to leave, a partial mark. You don't want to put any stray marks on the ballot. You want to try to be as clean and concise with it as possible. Anything else that's on there could cause issues with scanning. So just make sure that you're filling in those circles, the dark circles, completely on those ballots. Once you have completed the ballot, place the completed ballot in the security envelope. Again, there are some counties that will not count ballots that do not come in the security envelope. It is seen as that those ballots may have been tampered with if it's not in the security envelope. Even if it's got that signature on the outside, Some folks may look at it, some offices may look at it as having been tampered with. So it's important to make sure that you get it inside that security envelope. And then second, make sure you get it into that exterior envelope as well. And on that exterior envelope, there is the statement that you are signing, that you are the one that completed the ballot. As I mentioned earlier, make sure that you sign that envelope. Again, you can have your ballot tossed if you do not have that signed on the outside. So it's really important that you make sure you have that covered. And last but not least, you can place the ballot either in the mail and have it delivered directly back to the Board of Elections, or if you prefer, you can take it to a drop box in your county. Most counties have drop boxes at their Board of Elections or a designated area. Some counties have more than one. Definitely check with your Board of Elections to find out where that ballot is where that drop box is. So the question is, if the mail-in ballot has already been mailed, can you still go to the Board of Elections to print, complete, and turn in the ballot in person? Or must you wait until you receive the mail-in ballot, then return it to the Board of Elections? That's a great question. And the answer to that is, you can find out the status of your ballot, and if it says it's been mailed and you've been waiting for weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks or more since that mail date, our recommendation would be to go to your Board of Elections and request it there, even if it says it's been mailed. Obviously, if you receive it in the mail, you can you can fill it out and take it back to your Board of Elections and drop it off if you receive it in the mail ahead of time. But specifically, yes, if you know that the Board of Elections has said they've mailed it and you don't have it in your hands a couple weeks after they said they've mailed it, the best option would be to go to your Board of Elections, request it, have them print it there, and take care of it there. Another great question, can you drop off another person's ballot in the drop box? No. And the reason I switched over to this is because somewhere we have that. But let me come back to that. I'll come back to that question in just a minute. And if I don't, remind me to do it again. So one other thing I wanted to mention real quick here with the mail-in ballots is if you are mailing them back, if you're not dropping them off, but you're mailing them back, remember that the governor has approved that the Department of State will be paying for the postage. So as of this election of November 3rd, your mail-in ballots, you will no longer have to put a stamp on them to send them back. You did in the primary, and the governor has taken that out, and the state is paying for your return envelope. So your return envelope, the outside, that exterior return envelope for the mail-in ballot should have postage paid on it. And then, as I said, step 3, just make sure you deliver the ballot. You deliver the completed ballot in the right envelopes to the right place by the right time. That's pretty straightforward there. The deadline for mail-in ballots must be received at your county Board of Elections office no later than 8 p.m. on election day. Obviously, if you are mailing it back, you want to make sure that your mail-in ballot is received well before November 3rd. You don't want to jeopardize having it get there late and not be counted. If you think there is a chance that you're mailing it back, the week before or any time between that week before and the day of the election, and you don't think that your mail is going to get it there in time, take your ballot to the Board of Elections office and drop it off, either directly at the Board of Elections office or in the drop box that's provided. As we said, you can deliver it by mail. You can mail your ballot back to your county Board of Elections. As we've noted, anticipate delays and mail your ballot back early. We already mentioned that. It is really, really important that you get it back as early as possible to avoid any of those delays with the United States postal system. It has to be received by 8 p.m. on election day. You cannot have it postmarked for that day. It has to, if it's postmarked November 3rd, and the Board of Elections doesn't get it until November 4th, that's not enough. They will not count it. It has to be in their hands, in their office, by the close of the election on election day, November 3rd. And as we said, the postage is provided. Delivering in person, you and only you. So this goes to that question that we had just a minute ago. You and only you can hand deliver your ballot either to the Board of Elections office or to an additional satellite election office or official drop box established by your county. So what we mean by that is, and I'll give you another example again, in York County, for the primary election, we had a drop box at the Board of Elections office at the administrative building. So you could drop off there. You could only drop off there between the hours of 8 and 5 because that's when the building was open. On election day, you had the opportunity to go to another location in York County, another county office in York County, and drop off your ballot there, but that was only on election day. Check with your county Board of Elections, and as the party here in York County, we will make sure that we get information out so you know, one, where those drop boxes are, what hours those drop boxes are available, and if any additional drop boxes are going to be added before or on election day. And back to that original question about, can you drop off another person's ballot in the drop box? No, you're not supposed to be able to, or not supposed to do that. You can take a person's application for a mail-in ballot and take that to the Board of Elections and drop that off for them, but you cannot take their ballot back. It should be taken, yourself. If there is a reason that you cannot get your ballot to the drop-off box by yourself, maybe it's a physical disability or an illness, contact the Board of Elections office and they can provide you the information that you need to allow someone to do that for you. But it has to be done in advance. You can't just show up with 2 ballots and drop them in. It has to be yours and only yours unless there is a specified exception to that rule. You should not deliver your ballot to your polling place. That means do not go on election day on November 3rd and hand them your completed mail-in ballot because they will not accept it. They will require you to do a provisional ballot, which we'll talk about in just a second. They will not accept the completed ballot. And certainly do not drop it off at your polling place before the election. The only places that you can drop off your ballot is to the Board of Elections office or to those drop boxes, those designated drop boxes. And make sure you don't deliver it to the wrong county. It sounds crazy, but we know that we have folks that here in York County that work in Harrisburg and work in other areas of the Commonwealth. And it's really easy to think, oh, well, if I just take my ballot back to any drop box, it'll get to where it needs to go. No, those drop boxes are designated specifically for your county. So it has to be dropped off in your county or else it will not be counted. And those Board of Elections offices will not forward those ballots to other offices. If you decide to vote by mail, the first step that you take after this training tonight is to see if you already have a ballot coming, and if you don't, apply for one now. If you registered already, if you applied already for a mail-in ballot in the spring, and you checked the box that you wanted to receive a ballot for the general election, it will allow you to, they will automatically send you that ballot. If you go into the system at padems.com/ballot finder and check and see, it should tell you whether or not you will be getting that ballot. Check the tracker, obviously, to see if the ballot's on its way. Again, you don't want to go in and request a ballot if it's already been requested and it's being mailed to you. So just double check and find out. And most counties are reporting plans to have that initial distribution of ballots out by mid-September to early October. So with that being the case, make sure again that you're requesting your mail-in ballot as early as possible so you can receive it as early as possible so that you can then return it as early as possible. Voting in person on November 3rd. Obviously, the first two options allow you to vote early, get your ballot done, and not worry about voting on November 3rd. But say you get to the point where it's too late to mail your mail-in ballot back. You can't make it to your Board of Elections office. You haven't received your mail-in ballot, whatever reason. How do you vote in person on November 3rd? Before October 19th, make sure that you confirm that your name is still on the voter list. We talked about this earlier, and where your polling place is. And you can do that at votespa.com/status, or again, contact your Board of Elections office and they can tell you as well. Make sure you have a plan. Before you head out to your polling place, obviously, as we said, make sure you know where that polling place is. Make sure that you pick a time to go and be at the polling place. Polls open at 7 a.m. in Pennsylvania on November 3rd, and they will close at 8 p.m. If you are in line on November 3rd at 8 p.m., you can still vote. Stay in line. If you're there at 7:59 and the line is long, stay in line. You legally are allowed to vote as long as you are in line before the polls close at 8 p.m. As we said, stay safe. Wear a mask. Bring your own pen. Black is best. As specifically here in York County, I know they use a Sharpie style pen. There should be plenty of those available. Certainly, if you are planning on doing that, make sure that you're using a pen that is is what they are preferring at the polling place. Follow social distancing. Make sure that you're staying 6 feet apart. Make sure that you're not right in direct contact with the person in front of you or the person behind you. And most importantly, please, please, please don't forget, thank your poll workers. It is incredible how much time and energy that these volunteers and paid workers get put into being a poll worker. And during this pandemic, in many ways, they are putting themselves out there to the risk of the virus. And specifically, they're doing that so that you can follow through with your right to vote. So make sure you're thanking those poll workers. Most counties, again, are providing them with enough protective equipment that hopefully they are staying safe as well. But again, if you notice that there's no barriers or anything, try to remain as socially distant as possible when talking to those poll workers, and make sure that you're looking out for their safety as well. Because again, they're a vital part of the election process, and it's incredibly important that you look out for them overall. You will need an ID at the polling place only if it is your first time voting at that location. If you've been voting there for years, you do not need to take your ID. You do not need to show your ID. A photo ID, an acceptable photo ID, is your PA driver's license, a student ID, an armed forces ID, a passport, anything along those lines. Or a non-photo ID can be your county-issued voter registration, a current utility bill, bank statement, paycheck, anything that shows you are that person and that you reside at the location that should allow you to vote in that precinct. If you don't have an ID on you, ask to cast a provisional ballot, and be sure to follow any of the additional instructions that they recommend. The thing that we tell voters all the time: do not leave the voting booth, do not leave your polling place until you've had the opportunity to vote. If you're not on the rolls, there may be an issue there, and you may have to go somewhere else. but at all costs, you can always ask to fill out a provisional ballot, and they should be able to provide that for you at the polling place. So we always get the question about, can you wear buttons and hats and that kind of stuff supporting your candidates? And the answer to that is yes, actually you can. As long as you're not in the polling place handing out materials, campaigning, polling for a candidate, you can wear, a Biden-Harris button, or you can be wearing a Eugene D. Pasquale for Congress hat, or whatever it might be. You can wear those things, and you should be able to vote. If the poll workers give you any issues about that, you can contact our voter protection line, and we will follow through with talking to the Board of Elections about that. But as we said, there's no campaigning inside the polls. You have to remain within 10 feet of the polling place, of the door of the polling place, to hand out materials or to have signs or anything like that. So be conscious of that as you're going in. And definitely, if you recognize that someone is campaigning without if someone's campaigning without being 10 feet from the door, you can report that to our voter protection line as well. Accessible machines are available for voters who are blind or otherwise need a physical assistance. And all you need to do is let the poll workers know that when you arrive, and they can help you with that. So the question, we just got a question that says, should I be concerned if I applied online for a mail-in ballot in June, but the status online says my information's not recognized? This person indicated they called the Board of Elections today and was told by phone they had their application, but they're nervous. Yeah, absolutely. I would be nervous as well. What I would recommend in that case, and we actually have heard of a few people that have said that they did not receive it. Now it's telling them that they were not recognized. What I would say is, give it another few weeks, after next week, after that September 14th date when counties can start mailing the ballots. If by, say September 21st, so 2 weeks from now, you still are in the system as not being recognized, I would call the Board of Elections office again. If they tell you the same thing again, that it's just not been processed, or that you're good, they have your application, that's when I would recommend you go to the Board of Elections office and request it directly there. When in doubt, make sure that your vote counts, and go to the Board of Elections, and follow through with that first option that we talked about earlier tonight. Otherwise, again, you run the risk of not receiving it. Then you run the risk of potentially having to stand in line on election day, and all things that people don't want to have to do specifically this year. So absolutely make sure that you are reaching out, consistently reaching out to your Board of Elections. I know it seems like a hassle and it should just be taken care of, but at the same time, this election is too important for your vote to be missed or not counted. So that's a great question, and thank you, because I know there's a lot of people that ran into that problem in the primary election as well. If you notice any issues at the polling place, report those issues immediately. If someone's campaigning inside the polling place, if there are kind of inexplicable long lines, if there's someone intimidating voters, if the poll workers are not wearing a mask or following through with the proper COVID-19 protocols, if someone's standing outside a polling place with a firearm, unfortunately that has happened. If the machines are broken, if there's any concern whatsoever, there is a statewide voter protection hotline, and the number is there. It's 1-833-PA-VOTES, and then it's spelled out there. We will have that information available at our website at yorkdems.org, along with a number of other resources as well that we're talking about tonight. But that is the number that you can call, and that will put you straight through to the state protection hotline, and they will then either contact the county Board of Elections, or they will contact the county party, and then the county party will take care of following up on the issue as well. But that is the most direct way to get your concerns addressed on election day. If you decide to vote in person on November 3rd, first step that you take after this training tonight is to double check that you're registered to vote at your current address. If you are not, you can go to votespa.com/register and update your registration today. So you can register to vote there. You can change your party affiliation. You can change your name if you were just married or divorced or what have you, and want to change your name. You can do that there. Or if you've moved, if you've moved and need to have your voter registration changed, you can do it at that site. If you've already applied to vote by mail, but you decide, okay, I got my ballot in my hand, but I don't know that I necessarily want to mail it back, and I don't necessarily want to go drop it off. I think I just want to go vote in person. You can do that. What you can do, and specifically if you run into the issue that your ballot gets mailed to you late, the best option would be to go vote in person at that point. So what you need to do is, after you've applied to vote by mail, you have those two options. You have the two options to vote in person. The first is to vote a normal ballot. And that's only if you surrender your mail-in ballot and its envelope at the polling place. So if you walk into the polling place, you hand the poll worker your ballot and the envelopes that they should be returned in, they can allow you to vote a normal ballot. If you sign a statement that you did not vote by mail, and again, depending on the polling place, the precinct, they may or may not have that ability to do that. But if you do sign that statement indicating that, you should be able to vote with a normal ballot as well. If you cannot vote by a normal ballot, you can vote with a provisional ballot if you don't have your mail-in ballot to surrender on site. And the reason for that is, and this is really important, if you were to mail in your ballot and it was processed, they would count that vote. And then if you went to the polling place and you filled out a ballot and you voted there as well, they would not count your vote on November 3rd. They would only count the mail-in ballot. So it's really important that that if you plan on voting in person, that you're not doing the mail-in at the same time. I'm sorry, if you're planning to vote in person, you're not mailing it back, and vice versa. If you go to vote and you don't have your ballot in your hand, you can request a provisional ballot and you will still be able to be counted. The only way that provisional ballot won't be counted is if there's an indication that you voted somewhere else and you voted twice, then the provisional ballot will be tossed out. That is one of the provisions that the state of Pennsylvania has in place to avoid any issues with voter fraud. So no matter what folks say, you cannot vote twice. That's really, really important. We hear that all the time, that you can vote twice if you vote by mail. Absolutely not true. The provisional ballot prevents that. So what is a provisional ballot? It's a paper ballot provided to the voter upon request. At a polling place on election day, the official poll workers should never turn away a voter, as we talked about earlier, without offering that option to vote on a provisional ballot. When should you vote with a provisional ballot? You should do that if you applied for a mail-in ballot and are unable to return the mail-in ballot. If you believe you are a registered Pennsylvania voter, but you don't appear on the polling books at that polling place, you can request the provisional ballot then. If you're voting at a polling place for the first time and you don't have your ID, a form of ID along with you, you can again request a provisional ballot at that time. And in the event that someone challenges your right to vote and you do not produce a witness affirming your identity, you can again vote by a provisional ballot. As we said at the very beginning of this slide here, an official poll worker should never turn away a voter. The provisional ballot should be given as that option to have your vote counted. Again, the provisional ballot is in place so that you can't go to another polling place and vote a second time, or so that you can't mail back a ballot and then vote again and be counted a second time. The provisional ballots are there to help avoid any voter fraud, and especially the claims of voter fraud that we constantly hear about, that truly do not exist in voting here in Pennsylvania or really anywhere. The provisional ballots are one of the ways that we help to safeguard that from happening. And how do you vote by provisional ballot? You request the ballot and ballot instructions from the poll worker on site the day of the election. There is a secrecy envelope and an outer provisional envelope, very much similar to what you receive for a mail-in ballot. There should be a place for you to go and fill out that ballot. Someplace in private, the same as you would find for anybody else that's voting with the regular ballot. Mark the ballot according to the instructions. Make sure you sign it. Make sure everything is put into the envelopes the correct way. Make sure, as we said, that you complete the secrecy envelope. You put the ballot in that envelope. Then you take the other envelope and put the secrecy envelope inside that. Sign the declaration. And then request and keep your provisional ballot identification receipt, which you can use to verify if your vote was counted by either using the online tracker that's available at votespa.com/provisional or by calling your Board of Elections after the election. And one other thing I'll mention too is obviously, with the mail-in votes, with the mail-in ballots, there are expected delays in the counting from all the counties. If turnout is as strong as it was, even just in the primary, there were a lot of counties in the Commonwealth that did not get their ballots counted until late. In some cases, a week after the election. It may be several days until we know the outcome of this election, especially at the presidential level. The thing that we've been telling folks is don't panic. Mail-in votes can definitely change the outcome from the day of vote, especially if we see turnout the way that we did in 2016. So it's really critical that we keep an eye on this. We try to keep an eye on the narrative of whether or not these votes are truly being counted or if they're fraudulent or what have you. We know for a lot of us, we're very anxious for this election. There's a lot of uncertainty with this election. For many, we're ready for a change, and it's going to take a few days, and we have to be respectful of the boards of election who are processing these ballots, because again, for many, this is either the first or second time that they've done this, and it is a very different process. So absolutely, we need to be paying attention to that. So we have a question that says, did we hear whether the approval was given to start counting mail-in ballots 3 days ahead? Not yet, no. There's a lot of things that are still kind of in limbo. I know the governor has asked for several things to be put into place, including ballots being mail-in ballots being accepted if they're postmarked by the date, as the question indicated, potential for counting votes early. No, as of right now, it is still ballots will begun to be counted on election day, and you have to have the ballots in place by to the Board of Elections by 8 o'clock on election day. So if that changes, we will post that information through all of our social media channels, as well as to our website at yorkdems.org. The Pennsylvania Democratic Party will make sure that they're posting it to padems.com, their website, and we will be getting that information out. If anything changes from what we're talking about here, we will make sure that is noted. The other thing that I'll mention, as you see here, if you have any questions regarding voting in 2020, you can contact the Pennsylvania Democratic Party at 833-PA-VOTES. And that's the same number that we talked about earlier that you'll call if you have any issues with voting. But if you have any general questions, you can call that as well. In York County, you can call 717-812-0088. That is a second phone line that we have available at the York Democratic office in York County. and that is a number that we will dedicate specifically to any questions about voting or any issues with voting on election day. Or you can email us at vote@yorkdems.org with any questions or comments or concerns that you have, and we will be able to get back to you regarding that as well. That is all I had for you this evening, folks. If there are any other questions, please feel free to post them here in the comment section. If you don't get an opportunity to do that tonight, please, again, email us at votes@yorkdems.org, and we will be more than happy to get back to you. I will wait just another minute or two here to see if there are any other questions. If not, I do thank you very much for joining us this evening. Please share this information, and you will see that at the end of this weekend, so by Monday of next week, by the 14th, there will be a section on the website, our website, yorkdems.org, that is voter information, and it will provide information on how to do the in-person voting, how to do the mail-in voting, all of the options that are available. And it'll go over a lot of the stuff that we have. There'll be a nice depository of information there. And I really want to thank KU, who is our voter protection director at the state party. She is the one that helped provide a lot of the information for this session this evening. And the materials that we're going to be sharing on our website all come from the state party as well. So I truly appreciate everything that she's done and her team has done. They have an awesome plan to make sure that every vote gets counted this November, and that we make sure that we get our Democrats elected across the board. So again, I'm not seeing any other questions, so thank you so much for tonight, and for joining us tonight. And please, again, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Be safe, and best wishes. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.